Welcome to the Kingdom Hairstylist podcast. This is your host, Billie Jean. Hey everyone, and welcome back. Welcome back to episode 45. I cannot believe that it has almost been a year since I had this podcast up and running. I launched it last year on my birthday. My birthday is June 29th. And so we are a couple of weeks away from June 29th. But as I was preparing for this episode, I was like, wow, it's been almost a year. And it was something that I didn't want to do, but it was something that God told me to do, rather. I was in a group with a few other ladies, and we had a mentor, and the mentor had us fast for, I think it was 10 days we fasted. And after the fast was over, it was a poverty mindset. Well, not necessarily just poverty, but it was a mindset shift fast. So we basically fasted so that we could shift our mindsets. And it was like one of the most powerful fasts I've ever done. And actually, it was only my second time doing a fast. And I really didn't know how to fast prior to that, because my first fast, I don't think I did it right because I wasn't praying. I wasn't reading the word. I wasn't meditating on anything. I didn't really focus on God that day. I remember just wanting to fast because I read somewhere in the Bible that some things only come through fasting and prayer, and I really wasn't never taught the proper way to fast. I don't know if like my grandmother fasted or if anybody in my family ever fasted. So I know that I am a history maker, and I'm a powerhouse. I'm a changer of generations, because I'm really, really seeking to do things that my family members never done. Or at least I don't know if they did or not. I'm not saying that they didn't, but I don't remember them sharing it with me. So that's why everything that I do, I try to let my kids know what I'm doing so that they can see all of the fruits of the things that God is doing in my life. Because sometimes kids don't always understand when, you talk about God to them. They don't really understand, especially in this society where the world doesn't make it seem so acceptable. It's always judgmental, or you got a lot of hypocrites. And I'm guilty of being one myself, where I would always talk about God so much, but then live a lifestyle that wasn't pleasing to God. And so when your kids see that, or they see other people doing it, then they kind of question that. So I always try to make sure that I talk to them about the different things that I'm going through, the different things that I'm doing in my life, so that they can understand my lifestyle. So that's important to me. So anyway, I want to get right into today's topic. So I titled this, "Delay is Not Denial." And this has been something that I have been standing on for so long, because I've been believing in God for a few things that have been prophesied over my life that I'm supposed to have, that some things I've seen and then some things I haven't seen. So I have been trying to go deeper and do things to show God that I really am worthy, and I really want the things that He's promised me. And I know that His timing is always the best timing. So that's why I titled it, "Delay is Not Denial," because some things we're not going to get when we want to get it. It's not a microwave situation. We can't just put it in there, put a number on there, and then think it's going to just pop out. Some things we really do have to go by fasting and prayer. Some things we really got to be patient for. And then sometimes we're in a waiting season, and I feel like I'm in a waiting season. I thought I was out of the waiting season, but I know now that I'm not completely out of it, and that's okay. And I know that it's because God's still disciplining me. He's still trying to get me to live a real lifestyle for Him and only Him. And that means putting my selfish ambitions to the side, things that I just want for me, and really putting His agenda in the front of what I want. So I understand it, and I see that there's some areas that I'm still working on, and I'm striving every day to be a better Christian and a better kingdom hairstylist, and that in itself is kind of difficult, especially when you deal with people that are not like you. And I say that to say, everybody doesn't think the Christian way. Everybody's not going to pray, and everybody's not going to read the word and all of that. So you got to still be mindful of how Jesus was when he was around those kind of people. And remember the saying, what would Jesus do? That still stands to this day. We still got to remember how he would treat people. He was very, very down to earth. As you can see from reading the word, he was really, really cool, and he was, he understood people. He accepted people. He loved people, all people, no matter where they come from. And as a hairstylist, we have to do the same. We got to love people. As a frontline worker, we got to love people. As a business entrepreneur, you still have to love people where they are and treat them according to how Jesus would want us to treat them. So I wanted to talk a little bit about something that I've been believing in God for. And it's pretty, I'm always transparent on here, but I have always said, I had my son when I was 19 years old, and I felt like I was so young, even, because I just had got out of high school, and I went to college for a semester at a community college, and I went there for just one semester. This was around the time of 9/11 and everything. And so my plan was never really to finish college, because I really just went because I didn't know what else to do. I didn't really have a plan back then. So I was living a lifestyle of no plans, and I was just out here living my best little life and not really thinking about my future. I didn't really have, and I'm not afraid or ashamed to say that, because sometimes at 18 or 19, you really don't know what you want to do. You just know you have to do something. If you have parents like mine, you could not just live there without either working or going to school. So I said, well, I'll try community college first and then just see if it's something I really want to do. If not, then I'll get a job. Well, my plans changed because, of course, I ended up pregnant in February of, I guess, that following year of me graduating high school and then going to community college. So now I'm in a situation where I'm getting ready to have a baby, and I wasn't really prepared for that. So this is when my faith walk got a little stronger than what it was, because I had no other choice but to depend on God to help me and, get me through the situation, because I dealt with a situation where the father did not want to be in my son's life. So I had to basically take care of the child on my own, and I knew that going into it. And I'm just grateful for my grandmother, who was so supportive and just wanted the best for me and for my son. And just when I felt like I was going through that postpartum depression, she yanked me up and basically told me that, I got to snap out of this, because this is my child and I have to take care of this child. I brought this child into the world, and the child needs a mother, and it needs a mother that's going to be nurturing and loving and a good example, and that my life was not over. She just gave me that encouragement that I needed. And it was like such a hard time for me, because I put myself in a situation that I really was not prepared for. So to make a long story short, once I got through that, I told myself that I didn't want to have any more kids until I got married. Well, I got married in 2018, but if I back up a little bit, I dealt with fibroids and didn't know it for so long. And I was wondering why my cycle would be so heavy. And I used to have to wear like extra clothing and bring extra clothing with me whenever I was at work or anywhere. And so in 2016, before I got married, I did have surgery. I went and had a myomectomy, and they removed 28 fibroids, which was not expected because I didn't know I had that many. They were rather small, but they were definitely blocking my uterus. And so they caused me not to ever have another pregnancy, which I really wasn't upset about, because I did not want to have any more kids until I got married. Okay, so fast forward. So then in 2018, when I got married, it's been 2 years since the surgery at that point, my husband and I are believing in God for a child. So I have been praying, without ceasing for a child, because I know that my son will be 18 in November. And people are like, you going to start over? And yeah, that's something that I've always wanted, was another child. I really want a daughter specifically, but if I don't have a daughter, I'll be grateful for whatever. So this is where the story gets very, very, very interesting and exciting. So I definitely have been praying since the beginning for a child. But, a lot of times when you go through prayers and you are petitioning God for certain things, you almost feel like he forgot about you or that he's not listening. So I had prayed for a while without ceasing, and then I kind of stopped, and I was just like, well, maybe it's not the time, for me to have a baby. So I'm gonna just stop pressing God out for this, because he knows what he's doing. And I know that my life had got pretty busy at one point with doing hair and just every other thing, like with my son and taking care of him with the diabetes and all these different things. We have several businesses. We got a food truck, and I'm a hairstylist. My son just started his clothing line. And so it's just a lot going on. So I know that God is a strategic God. So one day, this was probably like about a month ago, and I had stopped praying about it. So I was sitting and reading the Bible, and I heard the Holy Spirit tell me to read 1 Samuel. So I asked him, like, 1 Samuel, what? Like, which verse do you want me to read? And I didn't get an answer. So I just started reading 1 Samuel. And 1 Samuel is the chapter where Hannah wanted to have a baby, because she was married to, I don't know if I say his name right, but Elkanah. I'm sorry if I mispronounced it, but she's married to him at this point, and he's married to another woman named Peninnah, and Peninnah's having all these children, but Hannah can't have any children. So she starts to get jealous and starts to be frustrated, and but then she does something that's amazing. She starts to pray and petition God for the baby. And she's the mother of Samuel, so she prays and prays and prays. Each year they go and pray and to the specific place. And this particular time she prayed and asked God, like, for a child. And she said, if you give me a child, if you give me the desires of my heart, I will dedicate this child back to you. And once you do that, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to raise him. I'm going to wean him. And then when he gets old enough, I will dedicate him back to you. So, to make a long story short, Samuel is a prophet, and he is a great prophet. And he, at the time, I think he was like one of the only prophets. I might not be right, but I'm trying to go off of memory. But I believe he was one of the first prophets that we learn about in the Bible. And he was a great man. I mean, he was raised by Eli, and Eli helped him grow up, and Eli helped him become the prophet that he was. And he just taught him everything that he needed to know. So I was just so in awe when God told me to read that, and I literally cried when I finished reading it, because I was like, God, you remember, like, you did not forget what you told me. And now remember, this has been prophesied to me that I'll have a daughter. This is something that 2 different prophets have told me, but I don't, I just didn't want to get my hopes up high. It was sort of like lack of faith, not really believing and trusting in God, because it didn't happen when I thought it would happen. But again, our timing is not always, the timing that God will have things happen. So the scripture that stood out to me the most when I was reading 1 Samuel was 1 Samuel 1, and it was verse 19, and it reads, "The entire family got up early the next morning and went to worship the Lord once more. Then they returned home to Ramah. When Elkanah slept with Hannah, the Lord remembered her plea." So it just brought me to my knees, because I was like, the Lord remember my plea. He's going to remember my plea. And so I started, just journaling about it and thanking God for it already, and believing God for it already, and praising God. And when I worship, I thank him for the expectation of me being pregnant and just everything, because it's one of my desires. And I know that God is a God that loves to love on us and give us these little kisses from heaven, and just to show us that he hears everything. So I'm going to put this song in the show notes